In the quiet town of Blue Creek, where the nights were filled with the hum of crickets and the occasional howl of coyotes, Ethan Monroe found himself staring up at the stars from his rooftop. His life had been a series of controlled storms. As a firefighter, he was trained to face the fiercest blazes, his fireproof suit often the only thing standing between him and death. Tonight, though, there was a chill in the air that even his battle-hardened skin felt, a whisper from the cosmos he couldn't quite shake. It wasn't just the stars that looked strange, they felt closer, as if the universe itself was leaning in to whisper something just for him. Miles away, in bustling New York, Maya Patel paced her studio, canvases and sketches cluttering every surface. She was an artist, a visionary who could bring light to life with the stroke of a brush. Her paintings glowed, quite literally, an anomaly she'd never fully understood but knew she could control. She could make her art shimmer and dance, reflections bouncing off her canvases in patterns that left viewers entranced. Yet tonight, her paints and colors felt dull. Something deep within her pulsed, a warning, an invitation. Elsewhere, above the clouds in a military jet, Leon Castillo flew a routine mission. The sky was his domain, where he felt most alive. Pulling G's like gravity was merely an inconvenience. His reflexes were sharper than most, his reactions faster, a gift he'd been born with, honed through years of training. But tonight, his cockpit lights flickered, a soft humming filling the air. It was as if the stars themselves were calling to him, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat, and then it happened. All three saw it, a streak of light, brighter than any star, cutting through the sky and growing until it filled their vision. Each of them felt it as the light enveloped them, a sensation of weightlessness, of being drawn from their worlds into something much larger than themselves. Their senses tingled with the strange yet familiar embrace of ancient power. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves on a platform bathed in an ethereal glow, surrounded by beings of otherworldly beauty and strength. Before them stood the Interstellar Council, a coalition of leaders from across the galaxy, some humanoid, others entirely alien, but all emanating an unmistakable sense of authority and wisdom. A towering figure with silver skin and a crown of stars stepped forward. His voice was deep, resonant, echoing across the vast chamber. "Earth's protectors," he began, his gaze sweeping across them, "you have been chosen. The galaxy is on the brink of war, and ancient powers have awakened, forces that threaten the peace we have fought to uphold for millennia. You will be trained to wield these powers, to become the guardians of the stars." Ethan, Maya, and Leon exchanged bewildered glances, the enormity of the moment pressing down on them. They were heroes on Earth, but this was beyond anything they had ever imagined. "Wait a minute," Leon said, his voice tense with skepticism. "What exactly are we up against? And why us?" A member of the council, a feline-like creature with eyes that shimmered like galaxies, spoke in a low, calming voice. "An ancient force, older than any of us, has awakened. It lies in the hands of a warlord known as Malakar, a tyrant bent on conquering not just Earth, but every civilization within reach. He commands dark cosmic forces, and his powers are unparalleled. But with the celestial forces that each of you will learn to harness, you may stand a chance." A murmur swept through the group of humans. The weight of their new responsibility settled over them like an unbreakable chain, each link forged with the gravity of their task. The council guided them to a vast, open training field, set beneath a dome where galaxies spiraled and stars flickered in real time. They were introduced to their mentors, alien warriors, each uniquely skilled in wielding powers that drew from the very essence of the cosmos. The mentors demonstrated abilities that left the humans awestruck, manipulating energy, bending light, even summoning meteor showers in controlled bursts. Ethan's mentor was ZYR, a being from the planet Salvantis, whose people were renowned for their mastery of heat and energy. ZYR was humanoid, but his skin shimmered like molten metal, his veins glowing with the fire of 1,000 suns. As Ethan watched, ZYR summoned a sphere of blazing energy, the heat so intense that it caused the air around it to shimmer. With a flick of his wrist, ZYR sent the sphere soaring across the training field, where it dissipated in a flash of light. Ethan took a deep breath, focusing on the energy within him. Slowly, he felt a warmth spreading through his body, a fire that pulsed in his veins. He extended his hand, and to his astonishment, a small flame flickered to life in his palm. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Maya's mentor, Lyra, was a being of pure light, her form shifting and shimmering like a prism. Her people, the Lamari, had evolved to exist as energy, manipulating light in ways that defied human understanding. Lyra demonstrated her powers by creating intricate patterns of light in the air, each one resonating with a soft hum. She taught Maya to focus, to channel her energy into specific wavelengths, allowing her to bend light and create illusions. Leon's mentor was Crix, a massive, stone-skinned warrior from the gravity-dense world of Trocker. His people were masters of gravitational manipulation, using their unique physiology to control their density and even create localized gravitational fields. Crix showed Leon how to anchor himself to the ground, his body becoming as immovable as a mountain. With practice, Leon learned to manipulate his own weight, allowing him to move with impossible speed or become a fortress of strength. Days turned into weeks as the Earth heroes trained under the guidance of their mentors. They faced countless challenges, pushing their minds and bodies to their limits. Yet, as they honed their powers, they grew closer, not only to their mentors but also to each other. They learned to trust in their newfound abilities, to rely on one another in ways they had never imagined, but their training was not without its struggles. Ethan grappled with the destructive nature of his power, fearing that he could lose control and harm those he cared about. Maya struggled to maintain her illusions over long periods, her energy often waning at critical moments. Leon wrestled with the responsibility that came with his newfound strength, knowing that he could end lives with a single misstep. One night, as the three of them sat beneath the stars, the weight of their task pressing down on them, Ethan spoke up, "Do you guys ever wonder why we were chosen? Out of all the people on Earth, why us?" Maya looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Maybe it's because we've all faced challenges on Earth that prepared us for this. We've all had to be strong, to protect others, even when it meant risking ourselves." Leon grunted, crossing his arms. "Or maybe we're just the unlucky ones who happened to be in the right place at the wrong time." They laughed, the sound echoing across the training grounds, a rare moment of levity in the face of their daunting mission. Their laughter was cut short, however, as alarms blared through the training field. Red lights flashed, and the Council's voice echoed in their minds, "Guardians, prepare for battle. Malakar's forces have breached our defenses. This is not a drill." Heart-pounding, Ethan looked at Maya and Leon, a spark of determination in his eyes. This was it, their first real test. They had trained for this moment, but the reality of facing an enemy like Malakar was something they could never truly be prepared for. They rushed to the armory, donning the armor and weapons that had been crafted for them by their mentors. Ethan's suit glowed with an inner fire, channeling his heat and energy. Maya's was sleek and reflective, amplifying her light-based powers. Leon's was heavy and imposing, designed to withstand immense force. As they stepped out onto the battlefield, they were greeted by the sight of Malakar's soldiers, a legion of dark, twisted beings, each one emanating an aura of pure malevolence. The soldiers moved as one, their eyes gleaming with an unnatural light, their bodies surrounded by a dark mist that seemed to absorb the light around them. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the fire within him surge in response to the threat. Maya focused, her hands glowing as she prepared to create illusions to confuse their enemies. Leon clenched his fists, his body becoming as solid as stone as he prepared to stand his ground. The battle was fierce, a clash of light and darkness that shook the ground beneath them. Ethan unleashed torrents of fire, incinerating the soldiers that dared to approach him. Maya created dazzling illusions, causing the enemy to strike at shadows and phantoms. Leon barreled through the ranks, his fists like sledgehammers, his strength unstoppable, but for every enemy they felled, more seemed to take their place. The forces of Malachar were relentless, their dark energy sapping the strength of the Guardians, pushing them to their limits. Ethan's flames began to waver, Maya's illusions flickered, and Leon's strength began to falter. Just when it seemed they would be overwhelmed, a blinding light erupted from the sky, and the Council a blinding light erupted from the sky, illuminating the battlefield like a second sun. The Council had arrived, and with them, a legion of allies from across the galaxy, heroes and warriors of various shapes, sizes, and abilities. They moved as one, a tidal wave of determination and raw power, driving back Malachar's forces with a force that the Guardians could barely comprehend. Ethan, Maya, and Leon, drained and battered, felt a surge of renewed strength. This was what they had been fighting for, a united galaxy, a coalition of beings who, despite their differences, had come together to protect the peace they all valued. With a silent nod of understanding, the three Earth heroes rose to join their allies, throwing themselves into the fray with a newfound sense of purpose. Ethan focused on channeling his fire into controlled blasts, targeting clusters of Malachar's soldiers and clearing paths for his allies. He felt his flames burn hotter and brighter than ever before, fed by the strength of those fighting beside him. Maya, drawing from the ambient light around her, created dazzling illusions that shielded their movements, allowing the allied forces to flank the enemy. Her powers, once limited to her paintings, now felt boundless, as if the very stars themselves were lending her their light. Leon, meanwhile, used his control over gravity to protect his comrades, creating barriers that shielded them from enemy attacks and anchoring himself to the ground with an unshakable determination. He was a fortress on the battlefield, an immovable object that the forces of darkness could not break. As the tide of the battle began to turn, a shadow fell over the battlefield, blocking out the light of the stars. Malachar had arrived, his towering form shrouded in darkness, his eyes glowing with a malevolent light that chilled even the bravest of warriors. The warlord radiated an aura of absolute power, his very presence seeming to drain the life from the air around him. With a wave of his hand, he unleashed a torrent of dark energy that sent the allied forces sprawling, their strength faltering in the face of his overwhelming might. Ethan, Maya, and Leon felt the weight of his power bearing down on them, threatening to crush them. But they held their ground, refusing to back down. This was what they had trained for, what they had prepared themselves to face. They would not let Malachar's darkness snuff out the light they had fought so hard to protect. Ethan summoned every ounce of strength he had left, his flames blazing brighter than ever before. He focused on Malachar, channeling his energy into a concentrated beam of fire aimed directly at the warlord. The flame struck Malachar with a blinding flash, but the warlord barely flinched, his dark aura absorbing the attack as if it were nothing more than a flicker of candlelight. Maya, undeterred, used her light manipulation to create a blinding flash, hoping to disorient him. The battlefield was illuminated with a light so intense that even Malachar's dark energy seemed to waver. But when the light faded, Malachar stood unharmed, a mocking grin spreading across his face as he raised his hand, preparing to strike them down. Leon, sensing the imminent danger, acted without hesitation. He launched himself at Malachar, using his control over gravity to increase his weight and momentum, becoming an unstoppable force aimed directly at the warlord. He collided with Malachar, driving him back a few steps, but it was clear that even Leon's immense strength was no match for the warlord's power. Malachar laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that echoed across the battlefield. "You think you can stop me?" he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "I am eternal. I am darkness incarnate. You are nothing but insects before me." The Guardians, battered and exhausted, knew they couldn't match Malachar's power alone. But they didn't need to. This wasn't just their fight, it was the fight of every being on that battlefield, of every star and world that Malachar sought to conquer. The Council, seeing the Guardians' resolve, began to channel their own powers, amplifying the abilities of the Earth heroes. The alien allies joined in, lending their strength to the effort, creating a surge of energy that coursed through Ethan, Maya, and Leon like a supernova. They felt their powers magnified beyond anything they had ever experienced, their bodies humming with the energy of the cosmos itself. Ethan's flames transformed, becoming a blinding white inferno that seared through the darkness. Maya's light manipulation evolved, allowing her to harness pure starlight, creating beams of energy that sliced through Malachar's defenses. Leon's control over gravity intensified, giving him the ability to bend the very fabric of space around him, making him untouchable. Together, they unleashed their powers in a coordinated assault, their attacks merging into a single, unstoppable force aimed directly at Malachar. The warlord staggered, his dark aura cracking under the relentless assault. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes as he realized that he was no longer invincible, but Malachar was not one to be defeated easily. With a roar of fury, he unleashed a wave of dark energy, a last-ditch effort to crush the Guardians and their allies. The force of the blast was immense, threatening to consume them all, to snuff out the light they had fought so hard to protect. In that moment, Ethan, Maya, and Leon knew what they had to do. They focused their powers, channeling every ounce of energy they had left into a final, desperate attack. They poured their very souls into the effort, creating a shield of light and fire and gravity that pushed back against Malachar's darkness, holding it at bay. And then, with a surge of unity and purpose, the allied forces joined in, lending their own powers to the shield. The energy of 1,000 worlds, of countless beings united in a common cause, converged into a single point of light that grew brighter and brighter until it was blinding. The darkness shattered. Malachar's roar of fury turned into a scream of agony as the light consumed him, burning away his dark energy, reducing him to nothing more than a fading shadow. With a final, defiant snarl, he vanished, his essence scattered to the far reaches of the galaxy. His reign of terror finally ended. Silence fell over the battlefield as the light faded, the dust settling over the shattered remnants of Malachar's army. The Guardians, exhausted and battered, looked around at their allies, at the beings who had fought beside them, who had believed in them. The Interstellar Council stepped forward, their eyes filled with pride and gratitude. "You have done what we could not," the silver-skinned leader said, his voice filled with reverence. "You have proven that even the greatest darkness cannot withstand the light of unity. You are the guardians of the stars, and your courage has saved us all." Ethan, Maya, and Leon exchanged weary smiles, the weight of their accomplishment settling over them like a warm blanket. They had faced an enemy beyond their wildest nightmares, had stood together in the face of impossible odds, and had emerged victorious. They had become more than heroes, they had become legends. The Council and their allies led the Guardians back to the Galactic Center, where they were honored in a ceremony that would be remembered across the stars. Their names would be spoken with awe and respect, their deeds celebrated by countless worlds. As they prepared to return to Earth, the Council members approached them, their expressions filled with warmth. "You are always welcome here," the leader said. "Though you may return to your world, you will forever be a part of ours. The galaxy owes you a debt that can never be repaid." Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for everything." Maya took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping over the stars. "I'll never look at the night sky the same way again." Leon grinned, a spark of mischief in his eyes. "Guess we'll have some stories to tell back home." And with that, they returned to Earth, forever changed by their journey, by the powers they had learned to wield, by the bonds they had forged with beings from across the galaxy. They knew that their lives would never be the same, that they would carry the memories of their adventure with them always. They were no longer just protectors of their world. They were the guardians of the stars.